that I know says I gotta go, tired of going solo. But I'm never gonna go there again. This is what it is, this is who I am, this is where I finally take my stand. I didn't want to fall, but I don't have to crawl. I'm not the one with two scarred hands, giving him the best of everything that's left of the life inside this man. I've been born again.
Turn my microphone on. Amen, amen, amen. Well, Dave, it's been a week for me, as you know. I better get this out of the way. Or should I save it to the end?
Say what's on your heart.
Yeah, if I do that, though, I might not make it through the rest of the show.
Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. Amen.
I better wait.
All right. All right.
Okay.
Hey. Panthers are starting their Stanley Cup.
That's...
Is that what you're going to cry about?
Oh, man. That's a great... Oh, man. You know, you talk about a friend in need. You just pulled me right out of that. I'm sitting here thinking, how am I going to recover now?
Yeah.
And Dave did it.
There we go.
He saved the day. The Lord sent that is a help meet at the time of need. Woo, man. I was almost gone there, Dave. I was almost gone. That is right. The Florida Panthers, the NHL Stanley Cup Finals begin tonight. And my son, is that tonight or tomorrow night? I think it's tomorrow night, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my son's in Las Vegas. They're already in Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They are a well-oiled machine, those Panthers.
Yeah, they're in Las Vegas already preparing for the Stanley Cup Finals. For those of you that don't know, my son is vice president of something. I don't know. He's the vice president of Gophers.
I thought it was operations or something like that.
Yeah, they have some different. There's player development or player.
Oh, that's right.
Player engagement or player something. But anyway, yeah, he's the VP of something there with the Florida Panthers hockey team, and they're playing the Las Vegas Knights in the finals of the Stanley Cup, and it begins. I think it's tomorrow night. Best of 7 games, and the first 2 games will be in Las Vegas. Then we go back to Florida. Fort Lauderdale is where they play their games, and I can't make it.
Yeah.
Even if I could, they probably wouldn't let me in. No.
Well, these are the expensive tickets.
Yeah, these are the big. Yeah, and my son, he doesn't play. He'd be a great president. He doesn't play. He won't even let his dad in.
Yeah.
No, but he really, man, that kid, he is straight down the line. Sorry, Dad. You know, he'll do what he can do, but
he has taken you on a few trips, though, hasn't he?
Oh yeah, but those are like planned trips for parents or stuff, and when he can, he does. He takes care of Dad. And Mom. Awesome. He's had his mom come and to some games for a week, and so no, he takes care of us but it's all by the book. He makes sure that it's all by the book, and he is. It's my dad. My great late dad used to say, like he talked about my mother. He must have gotten it from my mother too, his grandmother. My dad just say, "Your mother's so tight. She'll squeeze a nickel so tight she can make the Indian ride the buffalo."
Oh. Now, see, you got to be a certain age to know the tie-in.
Yeah. The nickel used to have the face of an Indian. The Indian had nickel.
Yeah.
And it had a buffalo on one side. So you had the Indian head on one side and the buffalo. So my dad used to say, she's so tight with money, she can squeeze it so tight the Indian will ride the buffalo. It was always a great old saying from the 40s and 50s there. Yeah. But anyway, my son got that from his grandmother.
Yeah.
Not from me.
Yeah. No, I was 8 years old when I got my first paper out, and an old lady paid her subscription one time with just nickels and dimes, and there's some Indian head nickels in there.
Boy, yeah, those are. I wonder how much those would be worth today. Indian head,
because they were kind of rare in the late '60s when I first got mine. And then the Mercury head dime. Oh, if you got one of those, oh my goodness, yeah. So,
it's interesting. I used to. We may have talked about this. I had the original editions of X-Men, Daredevil.
Okay.
Those are the only two originals I think I had. Yeah. They came out when I lived in Philadelphia.
Okay.
As a kid. I was 11 years old when those came out. It was 1962, I think.
Wow.
When we moved there in 63, I moved down. That's when Daredevil and X-Men were released by Stan Lee and his partner. It used to be Stan Lee and another guy that did it, were the Marvel people. Yep. And Iron Man had actually been out. Iron Man had been out. Fantastic Four those were already out. And then Captain America apparently was the first one, but it had been out, I think, during World War II.
It had.
But they revived it. It had been away, and then they revived it.
See, that's a lot. A lot of people don't realize these are comic book series that go way back 50, 75 years.
Do you remember Sergeant York was another one?
I remember
they
the
actually had
movie.
They actually had a comic book, Sergeant York.
Okay.
And then they had another one of military guys, soldiers, and it was about a tank division or something. I loved it. I loved that one, and then it went away. I don't know why they quit. I guess people didn't like it as much. But there were two of those. I think those were DC comics. And of course there was Archie and Jughead.
Oh, Captain America was DC.
Was it? Well, Marvel brought it back then. It must have died because whenever I followed, it was a Marvel.
Remember, you give me flack every time I wear it, is that Veterans for Cannabis Medicine.
Yeah.
Well, the guy who helped me design that was a committee chair in the legislature, a Republican, actually a lawyer. He's a big DC fan. He said, do the Captain America shield, and he and I are planning this out because he wants to see a bunch of veterans show up in the gallery wearing these, because that's a sympathetic group of people.
Right. These
poor veterans, they suffered. Now they're just so flashback, panic attack, and they just need some medical marijuana,
Are you sure it isn't the medical marijuana that's creating the problems? They're just high. As you can see, David, I said we don't agree.
It's like Homer Simpson said in his cheer, to liquor, the solution to all man's problems and the cause of them all too.
Yeah. I think we differ somewhat because my dad in Vietnam, one of his jobs, unofficially, it wasn't official, but he was the first sergeant, or actually personnel sergeant, and the guys who were hooked on the drugs, the heroin over in Vietnam, would be to come to him, and he would get them into rehab programs. And it was sad because you'd have a first sergeant who would like to catch them, because if they were caught by the first sergeant, or they called them the top in those days, they would kick them out of the military. But if they voluntarily turned themselves in, then they would get help and be rehabbed, and they would get an honorable discharge then. They'd send them to a clinic, get them cleaned up and out. And so they would come to Sergeant Huff, and he would always cover for them. And he got into some real hassles with these first sergeants because they were so badly want to get rid of these kids, and the kids we're talking 18, 19-year-old kids that got heavy into heroin while in Vietnam.
Yeah, that's back when we had the draft. A lot of people didn't want to be there. They didn't sign up for it.
And then he would take care of it, and these first sergeant would want the names, and he would protect them. Nope. And he would see they got the help. And I remember, being there later, and guys would come through town with their families later, just almost in tears, thanking. I think we may have talked about this before, how they would come and thank my dad, and even after he passed away, to want to see him and thank him for helping them, get their life back and everything, start all over. But so I understand you're part of it. The having the compassion for people in the drug situation and in that. I understand that.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I don't like drugs. Let's put it that way. I don't like drugs of any kind. I don't like the prescription drugs, and I don't like the non-prescription drugs.
Right. You and I are very much in agreement there. Like the state question a few months ago on casual use marijuana. We both said no on this. Right. But if there is a medical condition you have, your friend Pat Campbell, his mother, opioids quit working for her, and the CBD oils with some THC at least gave her some sleep at night. Yeah,
I think the thing that bothered me about the marijuana laws, when I say marijuana, the marijuana laws in Oklahoma and so many other states, is when they took it out of the hands of the doctors and just started these, so-called labs or pharmacies all over the place. Every corner has one now. It's just like California. Instead of, what was wrong with going to a doctor and having them write you a prescription, a prescription for your needs, and just do it that way, like you do with other medical needs.
On paper, it's as close as the federal government will let us. The federal government won't let doctors prescribe.
See, and that I could totally support. I would be 100% behind that. And I always have been. And I used to yell, so why won't the government allow this? And you know what I really think the secret behind it was? I think deep down, the federal government really, someone was paying these people to not have that, so we could introduce more liberal marijuana laws. I really believe.
Eddie, I tell you what, this could be fixed in a moment. Well, actually, this House passed it. The Senate needs to just reschedule marijuana from Schedule 1 over to Schedule 2 or 3 to where it's just like painkillers. You know?
Yeah.
And you got to go to the doctor.
Hydroxychloroquine, not hydroxychloroquine, but what was it?
Lortabs.
Yeah, Lortabs. They call it something else now.
It's an opioid type medicine.
Right.
It's a painkiller.
Norco. They call it Norco now.
Yeah, oxycodone.
Yeah, you have to get it behind the counter.
Yeah.
It's simple. You used to be able to get it real easy, simple, no more.
If they did that, Eddie, all of these dispensaries could be shut down and you go back to your local pharmacy for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, there's a lot of us who think the pharmacies are too powerful.
Yeah, but isn't it funny that you have to go to the pharmacist to get Allegra D, anything with a D, the decongest,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. You remember you used to be able to get your Allegra or what was the real popular one for many years? Claritin. You could get Claritin, Allegra, all of those. You could just get it out on the shelf. But it has the decongestant.
Is that what can be used to make meth?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. And also it to lose weight. It's methamphetamine. It's a methamphetamine that was in it.
Right.
So they put it behind the counter. And no big deal. Now you don't even have a prescription, but you have to get it behind the counter. So why not do the same thing? Exactly. Hey, people, Dave and I actually agree on something for once.
I have to tell you, there used to be something. Remember the old medicine Contact?
Yeah.
The little capsule?
Yeah, I remember
that. Had chlorpheniramine malate and phenopropanolamine hydrochloride.
Wow.
I know this because
watch your mouth.
My wife had really bad allergies, hay fever and stuff. I mean, this was literally Sunday night at the altar. She got healed. It was an instantaneous thing. But anyway, I remember talking to the pharmacist, I said, it's the antihistamine that's really a problem. Can we just get the decongestant? He said, well, yeah. He says it's actually a diet aid. It's sold over the counter, the decongestant part of it. And it's a stimulant. And he said, let me see if we can get it. And he said, I can get it from a veterinary supply. And he gave me a bottle of like 500 of these. It was dirt cheap, 500 for $26. And now those are illegal. But I've got a big bottle of 500 of them still. I shouldn't
be careful.
say
People
it.
Yeah, I know.
And I don't dare leave the house with them because I could probably get busted for having meth making.
But it's funny. Yeah, you have to go to the vet to get it. But it's just like getting hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah.
You have to go to the vet.
I know.
Or you did. Not anymore. I guess you can go back to the doctor and get them now. But for a while, a lot of doctors and pharmacies wouldn't even carry it and stuff. It was ridiculous.
Here's a tie-in. Our neighbors to the north, Canada, with their nationalized health care, right? There's long waiting lists for things like MRIs and things like that. And you can't just go someplace else. Like you could take your dog to the vet today and get an MRI for your dog. But they get in trouble if they do an MRI on a person.
What the vet does?
Yeah.
Because people were starting to go to the vets to get the MRIs.
Because you've heard stories for 20 years now of Canadians coming to America because they're not going to wait.
Yeah.
People are dying. And so now in Canada, they have actually started assisted suicide in the hospitals. And so you can wait 2 or 3 years for life-preserving care, or if you're depressed, no waiting list, no waiting time for just checking in to check out. This is what's going on in Canada.
So let that be a lesson to you about socialized medicine, that we're always hearing about how wonderful this socialized medicine is everywhere.
That and big pharma, Eddie, here's where you and I aren't going to agree. I told Chip Paul when we were negotiating, once we passed medical marijuana, but we kind of had to fill in the details on it. And Chip was driving over to the Capitol to negotiate. And I said, Chip, our Alamo is this: home grow. A person, if they can't afford it, they need to be able to grow their own. And because that's the anti-big pharma. That's the empower the little guy to provide for himself.
You're talking about marijuana.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have just gotten to where we regulate it, and you got to go to the man or the corporation.
So your fear is that if we regulate it and put it behind the counter, that someone will get a hold of it and make it into such a profit making situation that it'll be unaffordable for the common person.
Look what they've done to insulin. Look what they've done to a lot of things. EpiPens.
Yeah, but I would think, but see, a part of that should be, and I know this is a dirty word to my fellow conservatives, regulated. Yeah. I mean, look, what is another word for marijuana?
Cannabis?
No.
Weed? Hemp?
Weed.
It's
weed.
I like cannabis. Let's use that word.
If you can grow it in your backyard or throw it out in the woods and grow it, then it should tell you that it's not that expensive to grow. Okay?
You know what? I've got a lot of friends who have grow license, and they said it's a lot tougher than it looks.
Well, yeah, it depends on, we're talking about quality.
Exactly.
But see, well, you've never done it.
Oh, as a teenager.
Oh, yeah. You did? Okay. Now, let me just tell you, when I did it, that was some good stuff. And it wasn't these beautiful, look at these beautiful buds. And, you know what I mean? How now it's got to look a certain way and it's got to be a certain way. Stems, stems, branches, leaves, dried and cracked, and it would get you high. Okay.
Yeah.
It did its job.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden you got all these connoisseurs. Oh, this is a 1932 vintage Muskogee. We've got a Tahlequah white or something. Can you imagine us start having names,
Well, in my day, my regular supply was Colombian Sticky Bud or Colombian Gold. And if I was really in a good mood, Panama Red was the hot stuff.
Well, yeah, and in Europe, you had your Moroccan and then you had your Afghan and hashish, the hash.
Yes.
Which was really, really powerful stuff. But nobody really cared. You get a chunk of rock. What you got? What? Yeah, Panamanian. Yeah, give me the Moroccan, Afghan. Yeah, and you throw it in a pipe or you break it up in some tobacco and roll it in a cigarette and boom. So it's people are overthinking this.
Yeah.
And what it is, it really is? By the way, young people out there, if I can recommend one major above all majors to you in college, it's called marketing. It's all marketing.
Yeah.
Marketing is where it's at. Because in the end, I don't care how good it is, it's how you market it.
Yep.
You can take the stems and dried up leaves and whatever, as I said, weed, and sell it just like the sticky buds or the Panamanian this and that, So, but my thing is what was it? Willie Mays used to say, don't touch them. Do you remember those blasting cap commercials?
Yeah.
These are blasting caps.
Yeah.
Don't touch them.
But you know what? People can get high. They can sniff gasoline, get high.
Glue. Yeah. If they do that, do that. Do that. If they do that, no, don't do that. Okay. Is what I say. But if you need it medicinally, go to someone who dispenses medicinal thing with a license. That's my thing. That's what I'm saying. You know why
I quit? I got saved as a 17-and-a-half-year-old, but I quit before that. A buddy of mine, I was asking him about it, because and I said, so why don't you smoke anymore? He says, I like having a clear mind. I like having a sharp brain. And there's something wrong with you if you don't like that. Some people have issues they need to see a therapist, a counselor, a minister about, instead of just drowning their problems in more drugs and liquor. That's really what it's about.
With me, it was supernatural. I was, in an instant, God just delivered me. In fact, probably 6 months to a year earlier, I honestly thought I would never be able to kick this. Yeah, if I smelled marijuana, hashish, drug, anything, I wanted it.
Really?
I just couldn't. But in an instant that one night after I went forward, got saved, walked out, it was gone.
I have to say, I gave my heart to Jesus on a Sunday night in a Pentecostal church. And it was a week later, I'm cleaning out my car. I get it, open the glove box in the back, and I pull out a bag of stuff. It wasn't just pot, I had other things. And I just stared at it, my God, I actually used to consume this once in a while. And I
used to consume this once in a while.
Well, it was just because you don't realize how much you've changed. And, it was a week later. This is my new life. And I grabbed it. We heated our house on wood back then. I grabbed that. I went in the house, threw it in the wood stove. And my dad saw that. And my dad was the one who prayed with me at the altar, And to him, that was evidence. Okay, this is real. He's throwing away that stuff. He's putting his old life, the old man, behind. So anyway, and I tell people, listen, I've been invited to so many pot parties since State Question 788 passed, because they all just figure, I'm one of the gang. And I told them no. And then when I tell them that I train law enforcement, now they think I'm a narc and I'm a, you got to watch it around. And I just said, guys, if you just can't get through a day without it, you've got a real need. It could be a medical need. It could be a mental health need.
Yeah.
Get help.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like I said, I don't think without a supernatural intervention of the Holy Spirit, I don't think I could have quit.
Wow.
And it was so weird because it was like not wanting a piece of stale gum. Mm-hmm. I just no longer wanted it. And a week before, if I smelled it or were around, I would have, oh yeah, gotta have it, want it. So it's just one of those things, and I've had friends that I've walked and worked with that couldn't. I've helped them flush it down the toilet. A week later, the wife called me again, Eddie, come over, so and so, he needs you, and we'd pray. And finally, I got to the point. I said, look, forget it, just smoke it. Just keep it. I mean, really. I mean, you're just wasting money here. If you're buying it and then a week later we're flushing it down the toilet and then buying it and you're full of conviction. If you don't really want to quit, just smoke it and at least don't do that. You're playing games now.
Yeah.
But eventually, same friends finally did get to the point where they were able to overcome it.
Yeah.
But different people. People have different situations. Go ahead. I'm sorry, my wife is texting me.
The reason why I separate marijuana from a lot of the other, what we call street drugs, is the physical addiction thing. There are a few people who say, no, I have a physical addiction. For a lot of people, it's emotional, psychological, dependency. But a Tulsa cop, one time I listened to him on network television on Live PD. Remember? Live PD used to be. And Tulsa cops were part of it that they featured. And he had pulled over this guy. And he didn't have drugs on him, but, this cop suspected because this cop is a former meth addict. And the cop was trying to urge this guy, don't go down that road. He said, let me tell you what happens. When you take meth for the first time, it's as close to heaven as you can imagine, and you'll spend the rest of your life trying to get back to that place, and it'll destroy you. And I never heard anybody explain that addiction and how powerful it is. And I don't have the same view about those physically addicting and life-destroying, street drugs. Cannabis I look at differently. Mm-hmm. I really do. For the majority of people, but just like liquor, there's a certain percent of people who just can't do liquor moderately.
I know. It's
But I'm not for banning liquor. Now, some of my teetotaler friends are, but because we tried that. It didn't work. And I think we should adopt the same standard with cannabis that we do, or marijuana, that we do with liquor. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I understand what I know. I agree. The liquor thing is, to some people, it's gotten so bad that it's actually dangerous, medically, physically dangerous, to try to make them quit. Yeah. That's what I understand. Yeah, the withdrawal is so bad medically that you can't do that.
Yeah,
and it has to be essentially done in a hospital over weeks and months to cause their body to get. It's more than a mental thing because it's done so much damage to their body, and the body has acclimated so much. And I guess in certain drugs it's the same, that it can actually kill a person.
Well, here's a case of the golfer John Daly.
I've heard, I don't know him, but I know who he was.
Yeah, fantastic golfer. Always kind of a stocky big guy in that. But he developed an alcohol problem, and he tried detox a few times. And he finally announced, he says, you know what? I can't do that. And I saw him golfing on the tour last year. And he looks like a mountain man. He's totally out of shape. But my God, the guy can still golf with the best of them. Mm-hmm. He really can. And I don't know. I had a neighbor like that. He's an alcoholic, but he could work. He was functional. And I don't know. I mean, obviously, don't go there.
No, I agree. You need to stay as far away from it as you can so you don't get there.
Yeah. And
it's really sad in a way, because I was asked to speak at a suicide. I don't know if you could call it prevention. It was at Owasso High School.
Yeah, it was an awareness thing.
And they had kids and parents, and they had a lot of the parents of children who had committed suicide, or overdosed. And I'll never forget this one dad whose daughter put a gun to her mouth and blew her brains out. And hearing the story, and she wrote a letter, a suicide note, stating how she said that she knew from the moment, it was a crack pipe, she got hooked on crack, how from the moment she put that pipe to her mouth and first time she took a drag, she knew she could never quit it. But she saw what it was doing to her body, because crack, speed is basically crank is speed. Yeah, it was speed, not crack. I'm sorry, crank and crack. Sometimes they're almost the opposite. Yeah, it was speed, and it just destroys your body. You look emaciated after a while, and you just look horrible, and everything about you rots your teeth. And but I don't know what it feels like. I've never done it, so I can't speak to it. But apparently, it does something totally to your mind as well as your body. But anyway, I do want to hear. I think this is important enough to hear. But anyway, she said she knew she could never quit it.
Yeah.
But she saw it was destroying who she was.
Yeah.
And she didn't want to be. Can you imagine the hell that would be? You can't live with who you are, but you cannot, at least in your mind, you can never quit being who you are.
Yeah.
And yet you don't want to live as who you are.
Right.
And so the only way to end that is to end your life.
Wow.
Oh, man. And to have a dad reading this letter, oh, my goodness, still today, it's a horrible, horrible thing. And she was she was like 16, 17 years old. And this dad just in tears reading this letter. It's just, oh, man.
It is. And I just like how that Tulsa cop who got off of meth as a teenager, he said it's just such a powerful drive to get back to that euphoric feeling. Now, I have to say, I had a surgery that was pretty painful to recover from about 10, 12 years ago. And, doctor gave me 10 days worth of an opioid painkiller, hydroxycodone, I think.
Yeah, hydroxycodone.
Yeah. And after about 6 days, I handed a bottle to my wife. I said, honey, I'm enjoying these too much. It really, the peace that comes over you, the euphoric kind of, oh, man. And look, this is how a lot of people do get addicted. It starts out with a prescription for a painkiller.
What it reminds me of is I had a cold or something, and the doctor gave me a Z-Pack.
Oh, yeah.
Which is steroids, basically.
Right.
And so I remember at the end of this, towards the end, I said, man, I feel great. I never felt this good. I wake up in the morning, I feel wonderful. I want to get out there and do stuff. And I said, can I get some more of these? And the doctor said, no, we're not giving you any more of these. That's what steroids do. They make you feel good, and that's how, and eventually it'll tear you up and kill you,
Yep.
And I said, oh, these are a steroid? I didn't know.
Yeah.
But it's funny what you're saying. Exactly. Only it was different. With me, it was a steroid versus a drug like the hydroxycodone. Or hydrocodone, I guess it's called. But yeah, that is really funny. funny. Well, listen, David, we probably better move on to some other stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, Florida Panthers start this, I think it's tomorrow night, and the 7-game series. And
so there's 2 championships going on the next week.
and it's amazing. It'll be a first time, it'll be a record if the Miami Heat, because they're in the NBA championships. And I think that starts tonight. One. I think that starts tonight. And both of the teams are kind of surprises. They're kind of Cinderella teams.
Yeah.
So I'm pulling for both the Heat and the Panthers. I didn't realize how close Miami and Fort Lauderdale were until in December I had to take a Uber from one place, and it was like going from, Bixby to Owasso. It's kind of what it's like.
Yeah, they're almost like the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul. There's just a river. There's a boundary between them. But I'm talking about another championship. This is my favorite college sport is women's softball.
Really?
Oh, my goodness. And it's on. OU. Yesterday, both OU and OSU were in it. Now, OU, it was a tough defensive. I mean, it was shut out, and all of a sudden, Stanford, they had an error, unforced error, and a run comes in, and then another in, and that was it, 2-0. Now, this is the same OU that every time they win, they set a new NCAA record for the longest winning streak. I mean,
they've only lost one game.
One game the whole year. Who's done that? 4-1. And now Oklahoma State, who's had a tougher time, but they've been on kind of a good pitching run. They made it in, but then middle of the third inning, all of a sudden, lightning strikes, and there's a big delay last night. They didn't finish till late, and they were up against perennial powerhouse Florida State, who ended up winning. So now, tonight, Oklahoma State is playing to stay alive, okay, because it's double elimination, whereas OU gets another day off to rest, and I think they'll play tomorrow if my information's right. But I listened to it on the Varsity app. Westwood One covers all the softball games free. So
they'll probably be on TV. I'm sure. ESPN.
On ESPN. Yes. I'm not paying ESPN. That's me, Eddie. I'm not. No guilt on you.
No. I'm sorry. I'm not. I don't watch softball, so it's not one of my.
It is.
Sports.
It is 5 times as exciting as the baseball is.
No, I do. When I do watch. Softball, I enjoy it. No, I do. I do like it better than baseball. What I really like is the way the pitchers.
Yeah, the underhand
when they
pitch.
wish that, it's really something. And because the field is shorter, everything seems to move faster. So in baseball, it's almost like slow motion. So pop up and guy.
Oh, and it's so slow.
Yeah.
And the game face. I mean, these girls, it's the passion they play with. And, I have to say, now, Patty Gasso, a devout Christian woman, is our coach. She's a legend. She's like the best of the best, the OU women's softball coach. And the core of the team, not all of them, but the core of the team, very dedicated Christian women.
Of which team?
Of OU. They've, their motto is we play for an audience of one. And they just kind of leave that out there. They're talking about to glorify God. And I tell you what, in the day when you're seeing so much of college sports in D1, just a bunch of lesbian clubs.
I know, yeah.
It's just good to see that there are, not everybody goes down
that is interesting, and that they're winning. Yeah.
So anyway, that's what's going on there, and
lots of sports. Lots of sports.
Yeah.
I'm into track because you got another girl that's tearing it up and doing things different. And I cannot think of her name right now. Abby Steiner. In track and field.
Yes, Kentucky.
No, she's a pro now. She turned pro. She runs for Puma, which is interesting because Nike went woke, and then here goes Adidas now. Adidas is going to, so hang in there, Puma, hang tough. So, you know, and what's interesting, the Jamaican women have been sponsored by Puma. So it's Abby and all the Jamaicans against the Nike Americans and some of those others. So it's kind of an interesting thing where we're at.
One more tournament.
One more tournament.
Yes.
Lacrosse?
Invitational. No. The Van Rissegem Croquet Championships tomorrow.
You and your croquet.
That's right.
Croquette. No, croquette.
Okay. Well, anyway.
No, you know, it's interesting. Yeah.
It's an annual thing.
No, I'll tell you, though, I have gotten into lacrosse. I love lacrosse.
It is.
It's weird. I sit there and watch these lacrosse games, and I'm getting into it. I'm yelling and jumping around. And, it's a great game. Yeah. It's a great game. I enjoy it. But we do have news for you, everyone. Yes. We have news for you. Did anybody not see Joe Biden fall at the Air Force Academy graduation?
I saw clips of it.
Yeah. You know, it's funny how they want to blame everything. You know, Donald Trump walks down a ramp slowly, carefully to make sure he doesn't fall. And it's big news. Oh, look, he's too old. He's this, he's this, it is this. Joe Biden falls 3 or 4 times, you know, in his presidency, in 2 years of his presidency, 2.5. Yeah. And it's nothing to see here. You know, it's crazy.
Now, some people who are eyewitnesses have said on social media, there was no sandbag within 4 feet of where he was.
Oh, no, there was one. I saw it. It's on there. It's a little dark sandbag. And I actually think there was a mic cord. There was a little mic cord. I think he tripped on the microphone cord. That's what I see.
Yeah.
I don't think it was the sandbag, because the sandbag was back a little bit.
That's what he said. About 4 feet away from the sandbag is what I'd heard.
Now, if you look at it closely, it could have been. It was about where he was. But, yeah, I think it was the mic cord that he tripped over. Regardless, I mean, nobody else tripped over it. You know, he had the Secret Service guys and he was standing there. He got there and everything. So
now, if it was the first time he fell, big deal.
Right.
But this wasn't even the 5th time we've
caught him on camera. And it's just the fact, again, it's always something.
Yeah.
You know, like that's on Twitter, responding. It's always something. You know, this time it's the sandbag. It's this bag. It's the bike. Oh. You know, when he fell off his bike, you know, it was the wind, or, you know, and this time it was this, and you know, somebody didn't clean the steps to Air Force One properly, or you know, it's always something that is an excuse,
right?
But you know, I don't need an excuse. Okay, he fell. Who cares? It's all right. People do that. Okay, I'm very careful myself now when I go up and down steps, because stuff happens.
Sure.
Stuff happens, okay? Yeah. But quit making the excuses.
Yeah, what really bothers me is what looks like advanced dementia. I mean, the guy who, you know, he looks around like he doesn't know where he's at. His wife has to come
him. That to me is worse than the falls.
Exactly. That's what really
That's what I'm saying. The falls, that can happen.
Yeah.
Okay? You trip, you stumble, that can happen. But when you're shaking invisible people, that to me is the real issue. That's a worse thing than to stumble and fall. So quit making excuses for him tripping. Okay, he tripped and he fell. You know, it happened to Gerald Ford. It happened to this person. I guarantee you, I bet you Bush tripped and fell sometime. We just didn't think about it or worry about it or care. But Clinton, Obama, you know, it happens. So let it go. Quit worrying about it, and quit making it a big deal when it almost, or you wish it happened to Trump or DeSantis and all. That's what ticks me off. Okay, I just wish it wouldn't happen. And speaking of DeSantis, so he formally announced. I think we talked about that last week.
Yep.
Now, I'm starting to hear rumbles. He right now is anywhere from 20 to 30 points behind. But stuff that you didn't hear before that I'm finally, I'm starting to hear is that he's not a very personable person. I don't know if you've been hearing that, but apparently he's not the most congenial guy that you want to go up and meet. That, hey, how are you? You know, he's all business. You know, he's pretty standoffish. I don't think that's going to go very far. You know, Trump, on the other hand, he's always been, I mean, whatever you think of Donald Trump, he likes people. He's always liked people. He's an awkward kind of person, but that's because he's a son of a billionaire who became a billionaire. I mean, you know, I had a friend one time, and people were he had somebody talking about Michael Jackson being weird. He said, "You have more money than 99.9999% of the people in the world. You're unable to go out during the day, be around anybody. All you are with is you and bodyguards all day, and you have to watch movies at home at night, 24 hours a day. You're secluded, and you try to be normal."
I agree.
So for Trump to be as normal about anything as he is already something.
Yeah, I want to say I think they're both great leaders. I really do. I think this is a great problem to have. Because I'm telling you, the Democrats don't have these kind of problems.
No. Well, see, and that's a problem. Now, here's my problem with everything, with all of this, okay? To me, everything Ron DeSantis, and listen, I'm not hiding anything. You all know, Dave especially knows, that I've been Trump from way back.
Oh, I'm well aware of it.
And I'm not one of these people that's going to dump Trump. I'm just not going to jump off the wagon. And here in particular, I've become more entrenched in my Trumpism, if you want to call it that. To me, everything that Ron DeSantis is because of Donald Trump. Ron DeSantis was losing his race for governor up until 2 weeks before the election, when he called on Trump to come save the day, essentially. When it comes to policy, there's no difference. All of the big ticket items that he supports are Trump ideas and things that were spawned by Donald Trump, things that Trump set into motion. All right? The counterpoint.
It's both. He got some good breaks. Trump gave him some breaks, okay? But I'm telling you, he didn't screw up. He is Donald Trump at the state level.
Okay.
You know? Okay. So I'm just saying.
So what's he going to be at the federal level?
Yeah, I'm just saying they're both great candidates.
Okay. Okay. That's right. So why get rid of the butter from margarine?
Yeah, no, I think they're.
Well, no, I mean, answer the question.
I don't think he's margarine. I don't like your analogy. I'm just saying, look, for a lot of reasons, you take the guy who's already got 4 years under the belt and is ready to go with 4 more. Okay, that's, we're there. We're together on this.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I don't have to badmouth DeSantis to support Trump.
I'm not trying to badmouth. I'm just trying to state the truth. And what bothers me is I was DeSantis all the way. And I think a lot of Trump people are DeSantis or were DeSantis. But see, we've talked about this in weeks past. It's the loyalty factor. You don't try to throw out the king to be the king. You wait to be Prince, not Harry, what's his brother? William. Prince William is waiting his turn.
Yep.
Prince William is the example of loyalty, of chivalry, of patience, of class. He quietly sits there with his wife by his side, doing what you do as a loyal prince. When Charles goes, which Charles, it's not going to be 50 years as it was with Elizabeth, okay? Charles is going to be king, and Charles is going to be a great king, okay? We've seen it through history. We've seen it, whether it's generals, whether it's kings, whether it's whatever. When it comes to the loyal follower, king, you name it, they take notes, they learn, they come in, and they lead. So what I'm saying is, Ron DeSantis, I think, has been listening to the wrong people who have been pumping him up to think more highly of himself than he ought. He's ambitious. Do you remember the movie with Mel Gibson, Once We Were Soldiers?
It's been too long ago. I don't.
It's a Vietnam movie. And it was preparing for the first battle of Vietnam. And he was a company commander of this division or company on the front lines that had the first battle. And it was a tough, it was great. To me, it's the finest war movie about Vietnam ever done.
Great.
I mean, it was amazing. I mean, really. Mel Gibson, as you know, he does great
he's fantastic.
war movies.
Yeah.
When it comes to those historical, it was something.
Yeah.
But anyway, he talks about there's this young lieutenant, and this young lieutenant is out there, and they show him preparing to go to Vietnam, and this guy, he's out there, man, he's doing everything. He's just running his troops and running them, and he's out there running. And this sergeant is there by the colonel with Mel Gibson. He's talking to Mel Gibson. Colonel, he said, boy, look at that one. He's something, isn't he? And Mel Gibson looks and he says, I don't know, he says, he's eager. And he didn't mean it in a positive sense. He's eager. Yeah. And he said, and that eager will get you killed and get your men killed.
Yeah.
And so he wasn't looking for eager. He was looking for someone that is committed, that will get the job done. Devoted is more it, but without the eagerness, because the eagerness will make you do foolish things.
Yeah.
And so I think that Ron DeSantis, what I see is that same eagerness. I don't know whether it's his wife, his upbringing, the wrong people talking into his ears, the money people. What I see happening personally, I see him, like his money is coming from big money donors.
Yes.
And so he will be, I believe, beholding to these big money donors, the typical same people versus the grassroots, the people.
Yeah, he was asked to address that, particularly the connection to the Bush dynasty.
Right.
And he's, no, they don't have anything to do with this. And I don't believe that. I got to say something. Don Rubottom was my state senator back in the late 80s and in the 90s. We were talking about Coburn and, some of these people. And he said, Dave, you have to understand a politician's psyche. First of all, they all have big egos. They all believe they can do it better. That's what drives them. That's what makes that political animal different. And so you just have to know all of them have that in healthy doses.
No, I understand. But the bottom line is, who can they do it better for? In other words, am I doing it better for the people?
Yeah.
And
right.
if so, which people,
right.
or am I doing it, is this for me?
Yeah.
Donald Trump, what I'll never forget, and I think this helped me with him, seeing that Oprah interview from way back in the 80s. You know which one I'm talking about, right?
Of Trump?
Of Trump.
Yeah.
Where Oprah interviewed him way back, I think it was 87 or 88.
Yeah.
And he was a young guy still, and she asked him, do you think you could ever be president? I think you'd make a great. This was. Yeah. It's funny that Oprah back then, all of a sudden she stabbed him in the back.
Right.
But why don't you run for president? Do you think he said, I don't know, if it got bad enough and my country needed me, I might do it. So that's why I honestly believe the only reason Donald Trump ever ran or is running is because he truly sees a country in need, and he's doing it for the people.
Yes.
He's not doing it because he wants to be a great politician.
Right. Yeah. So the ego thing isn't necessarily bad. If it's self-consuming, narcissistic egotism, that's one thing. But you have to have that confidence that I can do it better than these jokers.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, take Governor Stitt, who come out of the business realm and for some reason changes directions, goes into public service. And I think Governor Stitt may go down history as the best Oklahoma governor ever.
Yeah, one of them at least. Yeah, sure.
I mean, he's made some mistakes. I know that. You know, particularly the COVID shutdown of the restaurants, and I fought him on that. But putting that aside, he's done incredibly well.
You know, that's funny you mentioned that, because that's the thing that bothers me about Republicans, that we're so fickle, that we turn on our own so quickly. That's the same attack that Trump is on. See, when we were on the other side of COVID, everyone was cheering on Donald Trump within the Republican Party because he was fast tracking. He was bypassing all of the red tape to get these pharmaceutical companies to be able to release a vaccine. I don't know if you remember. He was actually, because you remember we had like a 2-year test this and test that and all of this.
Right.
And everybody said, no, we got to have something right away. We got to get it out there. And so he's doing everything he can to get a medicine, a vaccine out to save the people, because we're being told that this is the worst plague since 1918.
Yep.
And so he does that, which he never mandated. He never told you had to get it.
And he didn't develop it.
He didn't develop it. He never told us we have to have it. If you want to take it, you can take it.
Yeah.
He didn't do any of the stuff that, and in fact, Biden and what's her name, Kamala Harris, I remember Kamala, I won't take it. I'm not taking this thing, you know.
Right.
And then as soon as they took office, they're lining up to get it. Oh, yeah, you got it. Now you have to take it.
Right.
It was a flip-flop. And then all of a sudden, what do? You got all these Republicans. Well, he's the one that got this vaccine out there. You know, this is how it just makes me sick, the turncoats we have in our party.
Yeah.
That we turn stuff, just flip-flop all of a sudden so quickly. We have again, it gets to the loyalty thing. And you've got Ron DeSantis, who's his best buddy. You got all of these videos, these clips of him basically kissing Trump's behind, asking him for his help, getting his help, doing all, and just being, oh, yes, Mr. President, oh, thank you, Mr. President, da-da-da-da-da. And now all of a sudden he's running against this guy, which really ticks me off. And I think that's my biggest problem there. Now, I'll be honest, what's weird is, if not Trump, I'd almost rather have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I really would. Just get a whole fresh, the way it is. Because if I'm going to have somebody as disloyal as Ron DeSantis, let's just get somebody totally fresh and new in there. Get Bobby Kennedy Jr. with the Republican House and Senate. Get all of those guys out of it. Get our Republican turncoat senators and all of the people that voted for this new bill, this new what would you call it? I don't know this travesty of legislation with the economic bill. I mean,
are you talking about the spending?
The budget.
Yeah.
You know, the spending bill. I mean, you know, I just as soon as have Robert Kennedy in there. You're going to have a total libertarian, essentially in there, and that's really what he is. And so you know, he's not right, he's not left. He's, you know, let's just have a crapshoot, throw it out there, and see what Bobby Kennedy's going to bring us. You know,
what's interesting I see here Oh, and by the way, when I worked Pat Buchanan's presidential campaign in 92, a lot of the people despised him. The big name, that people you knew were going to eventually run, they despised him. The reason why, they didn't like the fact that he was getting a head start on them. See, when the presumptive nominee in 92 was going to be George H.W. Bush running for second term. Then he's got 4 years, and then it's an open seat, right? And you had, guys like Bob Dole and, Steve Forbes, a bunch of different people, Jack Kemp. Well, they all despised Pat Buchanan because he got to start his campaign machine 4 years earlier because he was challenging the guy. And so there's some of that always happens, But I want to say this. The Republicans, you can't tell a whole lot of difference on policies from one Republican to another. Whereas the Democrats, you take a Robert Kennedy Jr. or a Tulsi Gabbard, they are miles apart from Obama, from Biden, from Harris, from most of these, Newsom, all of them. You got more diversity in the Democrat Party. The problem is the machine is shutting them out. In fact, did you hear Dawson Leary? From Dawson Creek?
Yeah.
James Vanderbeek.
Yeah, Vanderbeek.
Yeah. He's blasting the Democrats. He's a flat-out liberal. Lives, I think, in Austin area. But he just
But he's a strict, old-fashioned liberal that he wants to hear it all. He wants to...
He's an idealist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which most of them are. Mm-hmm. But see, they don't... See, I think what's happening... Reality is biting them all in the butt.
Yeah.
They're realizing, wait a minute, this isn't what I voted for.
Yeah.
We're turning into everything I hate.
Yeah.
Everything I've believed the Republicans were going to do, or I've been told and led to believe the Republicans are going to do, you're doing.
Yeah.
There's no democracy here. You keep talking about democracy. No debates. You're not going to have Robert F. Kennedy and what's the lady's name? The other candidate.
Williamson.
Williamson. Every time you turn around, she's running. Anyway, you're not going to even talk to these people,
right?
Yeah, they're finally waking up.
By the way, I found out the new term in response to the phrase of being woke, which really has nothing to do with being awake. It's like living in a fantasy world, But the opposite of being woke is being based, or red-pilled.
Red pill.
Yeah. You were living in reality.
Yeah.
How
so
things work.
Okay, so this is a more positive version of being woke. I mean, really,
it's almost like it's
a counter to being woke.
Yes, it's get real.
Being awoken from being woke.
Yes, get real.
Yeah,
okay?
Get real. Yeah.
And because it's nuts. Men can have babies. I'm like, no. And it's just crazy. It's not only do we worship our feelings, and that goes all the way back to, Bill Bennett talked about that, when he was education secretary. We've raised a generation that worships our own feelings.
Yeah.
But now we've gone beyond that to living a fantasy to the level of what they call it, a mass platform psychosis. That groupthink has gone so crazy. You got the whole WEF caught up in groupthink into a fantasy thing. And this is what they're doing. I mean, think about it. Remember what we used to do in the Olympics? They would kick out the East Germans because they were giving testosterone to their female athletes. Right? But think about what we're doing now. We're saying a kid can have testosterone in his system for 10, 12 years and then just declare he feels feminine and now he identifies as a woman.
Well, we're letting male swimmers swim against women and saying it's okay.
Yes.
Are you kidding me? what I always say, we need to apologize to the Czechoslovakian and the Bulgarians and the Ukrainians that we took the Olympic gold medals back from. You remember, we took all of the gold medals because they were doping.
That's exactly it.
And that's not as bad as already having the male testosterone and hormones.
Because they're not even requiring them to chop off their genitals. They're letting them stay full. You got, testosterone machines,
My son and I, we were talking this morning, for example, what is her name? The soccer player that's so vocal, has the purple hair.
Oh, yeah. I forget.
You know what I'm talking. Well, anyway, so she said, there's no problem with men, these that identify as women playing sports. Well, now that she's and her girlfriend or her partner, or whatever, who's a basketball player, now that they're retiring from the sport, it's okay to let these men in now. Mm-hmm. I wonder what she'd feel like, because guys could come in and replace. Do you know that the U.S. women's national team, all the women's national teams, they practice who they train against under 16 boys.
Yeah.
That's who under 16 boys is who they practice against.
Right.
Because that's the competition. In fact, apparently they played some team out of Dallas, just a local club team, and the boys beat them 5 to nothing.
Yep.
An under 15 or under 16 boys team beat them that bad. And this is the U.S. world champion women's national team.
Yeah.
So, and they want to get paid the same as the men.
I know.
Because we are equal to the men.
Yeah, I know.
This is the BS that people at home say, "Oh yeah, we got to pay them the same." And what gets me is the men actually allow them to get away with it.
Yeah.
Oh man, I would have said, "Oh, I'm done. I'm going to Europe.
Yeah.
I'm going to Europe to play. I'm not putting up with it. Are you kidding me? You're going to pay this girl here and this girl, all these people. You're going to pay them the same.
Yeah.
And they're playing 15-year-old boys is who. That's the level they're playing against, and you're going to play them the same as grown men over here. And I'm supposed to be happy about it.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so let's look at.
Did we go too far?
No.
Did I stray too far from the topic?
I think we're segueing into the next part of this. It needs to be talked about is what's happening in corporate America, going so woke. As Trump said, you go woke, you go broke. I haven't shopped at Target in probably 8 years.
Right.
Ever since they started saying it's an honor system which restroom you use. That means the biker club can all walk in the little girl's room where your 14-year-old daughter is, and nobody at Target's even going. They'll get reprimanded if they even question, hey, why are you men going in the women's room? It's an honor system.
Yeah.
They feel feminine today, all of a sudden. Some whatever kind of gang, biker gang, hoodlums, whatever.
No, I'm with you. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's gone way too far. And
how badly should we punish them? Because this is what's happened. Look what's happening to Anheuser-Busch.
Transheiser.
Yeah. And, I mean, they are hurting. They are 30% down.
Yeah. Target's on the way. Oh, here's the
Target.
latest. You know what the latest is?
What's that?
Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Her Chick-fil-A's even. Did you see that where I think he's the new CFO?
Oh, the foot washing?
The foot washing.
That's like 2 or 3 years old.
Is it that old?
Yeah. But what's going on is the diversity and equity and inclusion statement they put out. And I was listening to what's his name? Charlie Kirk. He said, God, I've been saying this for 2 years. They're not the same Chick-fil-A they used to be.
He died. When the original owner died, they just, it's funny how that happens. As soon as Sam Walton died and the kids, it's just, they want to feel accepted. They feel rejected by the world and they want to be accepted. We're not the people that you think we are. our dad didn't understand, whatever. Come on, get real. Your dad is the one who made the company what it is, and you're going to just throw it away.
I read Sam Walton's book, Made in America. It's the only book he ever did. It was a great book. And he, in the end, talks about that. He says, what it took for me to develop Walmart into what it became, and raising a family, and now knowing, my kids, my grandkids, aren't going to get to live the way I lived, aren't going to get the opportunities to learn the hard lessons that I learned. And it's all being given to him. But Sam knew there was something missing in the generations after him because they were isolated from those important lessons.
It's something I've always said in churches, the nepotism in churches.
Oh, now you're stepping in.
Am I stepping in it?
And I'm right there with you, buddy. Come on.
You do not become a pastor because your daddy was the pastor.
Exactly. We got the 5 families in Tulsa. The Roberts, the Dartys, the George.
All right, we don't need to name names.
Well, I'm good.
We don't need to name names.
You want my email?
Because it goes beyond Tulsa. Okay, it's a national deal, and probably international. But it's churches and business. I have always had a feeling that personally, you should not be a pastor if you have not worked at a non-church job for 10 years after you get out of high school. That's my feeling.
Yeah.
And music, worship leader, youth pastor does not count. You got to get out there and do something else, whether it's a businessman, working on the assembly line, building houses, doing something other than church stuff, because you got to meet real people that are dealing with real job every day. To see them in their real situation, real scenarios. But and it's the same in corporate structure. That's what it brings us back to. So you cannot let Fox News be taken over by the kids just because they're your kids. You cannot let General Motors be taken over just because it's General Motors. And the other thing in the business world is the stock market. Taking stuff from privately owned to corporately owned. As soon as you start selling your stock and you're beholden to a board and stockholders, and you're more worried about your stock shares, the value of your shares, than you are about the value of your business, the product you're putting out, that's when you start going down. Because you start making decisions not based on really quality. I've just seen it too often, because what happens, they start, it's that bottom line. And see, you can artificially pad that bottom line by letting people go, by doing different things to manipulate, even though the quality is not there. And it'll eventually get you, but it may take 5 or 10 years. And when it finally gets to the point where I'll give you an example. Allstate used to be on the Dow. They were the Dow 50 insurance carrier. And they were running their business like that. And then eventually it got to the point where they couldn't do it anymore, because artificially they were pumping this up, and then Travelers is taking their place. And I don't know how long Travelers is going to be able to, because I see them losing somewhat of their luster. Let's just put it that way. And it's gotta stop. So State Farm has been able to keep the quality in a lot of their stuff because they're a mutual company. They're which means they're owned by the policyholders. And so they have to be holding a share. Their profits are shared with their their policyholders, and they give back to them. Now, they have made some crazy decisions, and they're finally starting to have to, raise their prices and compete like everybody else. But for a long time, they were able to avoid a lot of that, and so I think in the end they're going to you're going to see some changes there too. But anyway, bottom line is you just have to keep your quality. You just have to keep your quality at a certain level, and you can't succumb to the mob. And that's what's happened with churches. Yeah, it's happened with corporations. Yeah, and for the life of me, I just can't understand how they allow that to happen. I mean, that's what I really don't understand with a lot of it, because you've got to I mean, how can you, when you see what happened to Coors, I apologize, to Budweiser, when you see what happened to Bud, how can you not make changes immediately to do things differently? Say Target. Like Target comes out, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, a month later, with these bathing suits, these trans bathing suits, and puts them out there and stuff like that. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it. And then Chick-fil-A and this one and this one and this one. Well, do you think they're just purposely trying to keep throwing stuff against the wall, that thinking we're going to get tired?
Well, and here's where I'm going with this. Elon Musk has gotten in trouble with the SEC for making statements that had detrimental effect on stocks in publicly owned, publicly traded. Now, okay, so the SEC has control over publicly traded corporations. If you move that corporation back to privately owned, you can still have multiple owners, but it's not publicly traded. It's not on the stock exchanges. And that you get away from a lot of that. I remember in Sam Walton's book, Made in America, he talked about what changed when they did their first public offering, and stuff. There were things they couldn't do anymore because anybody who owns one share can file charges against you, okay? What happened at Berkshire Hathaway's recent meeting, a stockholder signed up, wanted to speak. They let him speak. He started trashing Warren Buffett. Get this. The police came in and arrested him. Now, they dropped the charges. Yeah. But how do they get to arrest a guy who is literally on the agenda? It was his turn to speak. They introduced him.
Can he sue? I mean, he can probably come back and sue, right?
Not just sue Berkshire Hathaway, but sue the law enforcement agency for violating his civil rights.
Right. That's
okay. And where is Merrick Garland to protect this man's civil rights? This is the kind of thing you usually think the Justice Department's willing to step in on. And so this is the problem you have here. I think with churches, I loathe the fact that we become primarily in evangelical churches sole proprietorships. Okay. Not congregational form of church government. Some will try to act like they're congregational churches, but do they have annual board meeting elections? Because this is what you usually have with a congregational. That's truly the congregation controls this ministry.
Yeah, but that can be bad.
Oh, listen, there's no perfect way. Yeah. But I long for the days when we got back to that.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't really like that method either. I like the old method that the pastor has the church because the people like him, and when they don't like him, they just leave.
They leave, yeah.
People leave.
But that is a sole proprietorship church. That is owned by the preacher.
That is owned by the preacher, and when you don't like the preacher anymore, everybody gets up and leaves, and you leave the preacher by himself. Because that way you don't have to go through any paperwork. You don't have to dissolve anything. You just dissolve him. I mean, that's that's the way I look at it.
I have seen churches under that where multiple situations of emotional abuse, sometimes even physical abuse, to a point where if cops didn't step in, it would continue on, because you say, fine, you don't like it, leave. Okay. I have just been trashed many times. Your reputation's destroyed. You got defamations going on under the cloak of religiosity.
See, that is where you separate the wheat from the chaff. It's a spiritual thing. You should discern early on whether this is of God and not of God, and the people you elect to or choose to be deacons, elders, whatever. I come out of the Calvary tradition. Okay. When people started disagreeing with Calvary Chapel, Chuck just went to them and said, and it wasn't any kind of it wasn't over the usual financial or moral issues. It was over a disagreement of how charismatic shall we be?
Yeah.
And so he asked them, listen, we don't want to become Pentecostal. So if you feel you want to become Pentecostal, be Pentecostal, I'm going to ask you to break away. Yeah. And so that's when the vineyards, that's how the whole John Wimber took and joined Ken Gullickson, who started the original vineyard, and that's how the whole vineyard ministries got big. The vineyards are basically a charismatic version, very charismatic version of the Calvary Chapels.
Right. Well, you saw it in the movie Jesus Revolution, the Catherine Coleman interview, the healing tent revival kind of thing.
And Lonnie Frisbee.
And that was the point where Chuck said, Lonnie, we're going different directions.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But that's how Chuck always, how he operated. It wasn't a thing of, we're not going to fight about this. We're not going to go to legal this and that. He just, if you don't feel you need to leave.
Yeah, here's my problem is I have been in some mega churches where if the pastor does you wrong, you don't even get to go talk to the pastor.
Yeah. Well, see,
and the pastor is accountable to no one. No one.
Yeah, and the church should never get to that point. That's a problem, because at that point it becomes a cult. It's no longer a church, it's a cult.
Yeah, now Bob Yandian, at Grace, he said, I've always got a board I'm accountable to. And he says, by board, I mean local people who are part of this church, not some preacher off 3 states away.
Right.
That he and my wife and I are the board.
Yeah, to me, the most successful ministries I've seen is when a pastor is accountable to other pastors in town. So let's say, a pastor at Victory is accountable to the pastor at Asbury, Guts, and Battle Creek, in the different. And they don't have to be in the same denomination or whatever, but these are other ministers, and they're all watching each other's backs, and they can talk to each other and say, "Here's my deal. Here's what I'm going through," and just be open and honest.
Yeah,
but that's the real key. Are you being open and honest? I mean, you've still got your own people that you go to, your own elders and so forth, but there's certain things that are more church broad over the overall vision that you want to speak to the others too.
But the mega churches where I've had some bad experiences have been the only thing close to elders are employees on staff.
Yeah, well, see, So that ought to be a sign right there. And see, I hate the term mega. I mean, when you get to mega, I like MAGA, but I don't like mega.
Yeah, no.
I'll tell you, when you get to mega, every time I've heard of mega church, mega this, mega. It's always a little bit iffy, you know.
Yeah. No.
I worked at one of those. In fact, it was to a point where, you know, to get there. Here's a key. When there's a potential problem. When to get into the administrative offices, you have to be buzzed in through bars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like a prison or a bank vault, you know.
Yeah.
And you got somebody sitting there, a receptionist behind the bars.
Yeah, they're more afraid of their flock.
And you know, and they buzz you through. Or let me buzz you. Who are you? Are they expecting you? Okay, let me. Oh yeah, come on in. That's a sign that you're probably not at the, you know, it's probably not the best situation.
So I have to say, I don't want to get in too much of this. My family, my wife and I and our kids, we had some particular needs. We were going to a large church, very large church. It just wasn't meeting our particular needs anymore. But it was because we changed. Our family, we were dealing with difficulties that we didn't ask for.
Right.
And my roommate from Bible college, who's pastoring down in Tampa, Florida today, he still is, he'd come to visit, and we were talking about it. He said, you know, you guys need to go to a smaller church. And here's how brainwashed I was. I said, why would I want to go to a less successful church? And he did this, face plant. He said, you have been in a mega church too long. That you associate success with big numbers. And he said it to me very gently and very well. He says, look, Dave, the kind of ministry you need is almost never done on that scale. And it's usually the smaller churches that are able to care for the flock in those unique ways. Mm-hmm. And they're sacrificing that they could be a fancy stage production, you know, show and just rent the big auditorium, movie, you know, come in for in and out and hardly have any ministry during the week going on. Right. But the other thing I want to say is it's in those, particularly congregational form of church government, that you see a lot of the things like Sunday school, vacation Bible school, you know, the kinds of ministries that 7 days a week are going on because the people take ownership in it and they're allowed to. They're not, you don't have to get permission. I remember one famous evangelist saying, well, we got to protect the ministry. Problem is, when he said the ministry, he wasn't talking about the Great Commission. He was talking about his corporate empire, the campus, all of that stuff. And they're afraid of, you know, vulnerability of getting sued and losing, you know.
Yeah. You kind of lost me back in Sunday schools and 7-day ministries.
Vacation Bible school. Yeah, the kinds of ministries that go on, home Bible studies and you know, small groups and all those kinds of things. You don't see them. Dr. Cho did cell groups as a part of, you know, filling those things, but most mega churches don't do that. Not on any big scale. Right,
but yeah, see, I think you kind of still lost me on the whole idea of congregational churches and the term congregational. See, I got saved like the Jesus Revolution. Mm-hmm. Just, you know, a bunch of kids on Friday nights, long-haired hippies, barefoot bell-bottoms, you know, and we would just meet on Sunday. You know, if you don't have a church, you know, we're going to start meeting Sunday night down at the Social Security building, you know, and all of a sudden there were a bunch of unchurched bunch of us that didn't have a church. Most of us out of a Catholic church, but and so we started going down. There were 25 of us initially, and then somebody built a metal tank on wheels that we started baptizing in, and it just grew and grew and grew, and then eventually I was one of the first deacons. I'd only been saved 6 months. I'm you know, a young, big Afro kid, and we would meet with the pastor, and we elected these deacons. We didn't know what a deacon was. We just knew we were one.
Right.
and he had two businessmen that were his elders with him.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was it. And we had no role. Yeah. Nobody knew who was a member other than we'd see each other every.
Right.
You didn't sign in. You didn't officially join the church or anything. Never did.
Yeah, that's the first century church.
Yeah. And so to me, when I hear this stuff of, you got to, voting rights and you got this and you got that and that, and we never, till this day, the offshoots of that church never passed the plate. Mm-hmm. They had this somebody built a little brass chapel about this big, looked like a little church, and with a slot in the top.
A big piggy bank.
Yeah, that looked like a church.
Yeah,
a piggy bank in disguise.
Yeah.
But anyway, and we throw money in there, and nevertheless built this beautiful church.
Right.
And then we had some people, as the kids grew older, went to college, came back, got jobs. Some very, very wealthy jobs. They got some money and built beautiful church, sound systems, light system. I mean, it's same as Calvary Chapel kind of but it was all organic right within the deal, So that's my thinking. So I'm kind of still in that kind of hippie mindset that I struggle against these organized, kind of the Baptist, Presbyterian,
right.
that whole Lutheran, that whole thing. I come from a very, you would call it disorganized, but it's a disorganized organization.
But it's organic.
Yeah.
It's truly coming from, you have a group of believers.
And we're together because we want to be together.
Yeah.
We trust the pastor. He trusts us. We're there because you're feeding us. Dave, you want to do a Bible study? They said, yeah, I'll do one, so-and-so's doing one, your wife bakes cookies, does it, and people come to your house, you sit on the floor. Initially, we'd sit on the floor, and we're just there hungry for the word, that kind of thing. And it just grew. And then, of course, as you get older and you have kids, well, a couple of wives get together. Okay, we'll take care of the kids. You guys go ahead and do this, and then it like you said, organic. It just grows, and as a need arises, somebody takes care of the need.
Yeah, Eddie, I find myself being fed better in a small house church than a big auditorium production stage show.
Right.
I don't need the lights in the fog.
But if it's truly growing and all, at some point you're going to get to that point, because you're going to outgrow the living room. Well, you're going to outgrow whatever room you have. Then you're going to go to this rent a school,
right?
The auditorium.
No, I've been a part of house churches that were split because another house church grew so big. They said, okay, let's split geographically. Okay, right. All you in Broken Arrow here, we are in Jinx. We'll stay here.
Right.
And that kind of thing.
But didn't you at some point want to come together for a worship gathering together? See, the way we did, we just wanted to come together. So we would have a once a week group, which we called on Sunday, and then it got to a point where we did 2 services, but we would still have the house groups. But anyway.
But let's look
we're talking about church structure now.
No, we're going to move on to something else.
Yeah.
One of the best missions structures I know of happens to be YWAM, which you've had spent a lot of time, because it was truly, it wasn't some denomination picking you and then sending you on some circuit to raise funds of people who don't know you. Most the people who were funding you knew you. And it was getting kids turned on for God and young adults. The energy I've seen in it. My son went all over, Asia and Europe on his first, it's incredible
It's
stuff.
the world's largest missions organization that no one's ever heard about.
Yeah.
So many people don't even know it exists.
Right.
Yet it's true. It's the largest missions organization.
But you
in the
look
world.
at the New Testament, first century missions trips. Paul and Barnabas and Luke and Peter and John Mark and others. And it's a lot like YWAM.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they moved around, but then sometimes they would spend a certain amount of time and they would grow a church there. And all of a sudden, we need elders here. We need pastors here.
I have to tell you this story. And this is something you guys may want to hear. After the Vietnam War, the Vietnam boat people, they ended up in Thailand.
Yeah.
And so the UN had these refugee camps. Mm-hmm. And in these refugee camps, they have thousands. It's kind of like what we got the situation at the borders with all of these migrants coming in and unable to take care of them. Well, because it was a third world country, they didn't have the ability to take care of them. So they got these thousands of Vietnamese refugees fleeing to Thailand, and they didn't have anything organized or any way to take care of them. And the worst part of it was they'd have these buildings as latrines full of just the rooms where people would just go in and do their business and just knee deep in stuff. Well,
can you get any more graphic, Eddie?
Well, the UN had nobody that would want to do it.
Yeah.
So Youth with a Mission kids, it's, well, we'll do it.
Yeah.
So YWAM would do that, and of course they would witness to the people. Well, Time magazine didn't like that. So Time comes and does this thing. Who are these Christians forcing themselves, their God, onto these poor Buddhists and whatever, Taoists and everything? So they got the UN basically to kick us out of there. So that lasted about 6 months until the sewage got back up to they called Time Magazine, you guys want to do this? Yeah. So they said, hey, we apologize, you want to come back. And so of course YWAM came back.
Yeah. And
we cleaned everything up. Well, from there, then YWAM also started organizing the camps into, they started handling all the food handling, and then they started training the people into making sandals. They went to these places where they had old tires. They found all these old tires, and they took the rubber off the tires, the treads, and they made sandals out. And they taught these women, because the Thai are great. I mean, the Vietnamese are great at sewing and doing things. So they started a whole industry making these sandals. And so they started shipping these sandals all over the place.
Wow.
And then they started doing that, and then they started teaching them. Well, then we started bringing Vietnamame to America. Remember, that's why we have all of them here today who are filling our university and outthinking our people. So anyway, so that's how all of that got. And then we started, when they came to America, we started teaching them how to acclimate to America. In other words, that we sit on the toilet, not stand on it. Because they would come and stand on the toilet. Because, they just didn't know, because they're used to standing on the French toilets, which is the hole in the ground, and you stand on it. Well, we taught them, no, you sit on this, and all of these things, and how you do this and this and this. So it just progressed, and as Youth with a Mission was there every step with these people. And so, but Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam, all these places, then Youth with a Mission spread over the East. And then we were there at the 1972 Olympics in Munich. That's how it actually got started. We were there when the Israelis were killed. There in Munich, and that's how Youth with a Mission International actually got going internationally.
Yeah, but
after that massacre there.
The interesting thing I've seen in YWAM's legacy is how to find a way when there isn't one. My son spent time in Istanbul, in Antalya, Turkey, in both mission operations, the one in Istanbul, because they won't let Christian missionaries in Turkey. They run an English language tutoring center.
Right. That's what.
Okay. And then because of pressure from NATO, they had to open up cultural centers. So this coffee house is run by a family, missionaries in Antalya down on the Mediterranean coast. Upstairs we do church on Sunday, but they can't advertise it.
Right. Exactly.
But you come in for a cup of coffee and, we might end up mentioning something.
Yeah. you may see sometimes the advertising, these infomercials about mercy ships.
Yeah.
Mercy ships. Well, that was Youth with a Mission.
Okay.
Don Stevens, who used to be one of the directors of one of the Iran bases, he just got this idea, and somehow they bought this old decommissioned commercial merchant ship out of Greece, the Anastasis, it was called. And it took them 10 years to renovate this thing, get it, and finally launched it. Yeah. And it became a hospital ship.
Yeah.
And so it would travel all over Africa and Europe, but mainly it would cover the East Coast and go up the West Coast and then the East Coast of Africa up and down. And then they bought another one, and they've decommissioned the Anastasis now. It just got too old. But now they have 4.
Wow.
They've got an Island Mercy, it's called. It runs the Amazon River, up and down the Amazon River. And they go in these places, and they have surgeons and dentists and everything volunteer 3 weeks at a time. And they they repair cleft palates, goiters, they remove goiter. They do surgery and all this for all these people for nothing, all in the third world. In fact, Dana Perino on Fox News, her husband is a surgeon, a doctor, and they go every year to volunteer for, I think, 3 weeks.
Sure.
And she always talks about it. But anyway, these are just things that spring up.
Exactly.
And then you got people like me who get us in trouble by having rock concerts in the middle of in front of the stock market in Amsterdam.
Yeah, but we were talking about what goes wrong with the corporate mentality.
Yeah.
When you get too big, you don't want to take a risk anymore, and you're more risk adverse. You're afraid some guy who owns one share is going to sue you, or something. And it's an infection. Sometimes your bigness is your biggest problem.
Yeah.
When you had nothing to lose, you were willing to take risks.
Yeah.
It's things.
It's like, you've seen the movies where you get that one investor that starts something in a stockholders meeting. You always hear about it, but when it happens for real, oh, really? You can really do that?
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. But speaking of that, Elon Musk, and the whole thing with Twitter, I think it's kind of settled down now. Elon, I think people have just finally decided Elon's got Twitter, and he's not going anywhere.
Yep.
And apparently the new lady that he hired from, it's one of the NBC, Paramount, is she from?
Yeah,
anyway,
it's somehow part of the NBC empire.
Yeah, she's the new CEO running it, and she seems to be doing a pretty good job. Things have really quelled down, but anyway. He's got Robert F. Kennedy has received a personal invitation from Elon to do a discussion over Twitter, which would be good. And so we use our Team Kennedy email address to set up Instagram accounts. We get automatic when. Oh, yeah. So what happened, Kennedy got banned from Instagram. I don't know if you heard about it.
Oh, vaccine stuff, yeah. Because that's the problem with, what's his name, Zuckerberg. He's a intolerant fascist. Just if you disagree with him about something, he can ban you.
No, but this is now. What didn't have anything to do with vaccines or anything. They were just, his campaign was trying to set up a website.
Yeah.
For Kennedy. And so they banned him.
Yeah, but that's just.
But you think it's because he's an anti-vaxxer.
Liza Greavy has Oklahomans for parental rights and healthcare choice. She got kicked off, had to set it up as a parental rights thing, and they can't mention vaccine policy stuff. Because, it's gotten so bad with Facebook and Instagram. They're both owned by Facebook, right? Meta, and that's Zuckerberg, and is just intolerant of anybody who doesn't toe the line. And, I just got hit on something again, the Sooner Politics Facebook page, because somebody made a statement, and he had one of his, quote, fact checkers, which are just a bunch of liberal hacks, and they said, we haven't found any evidence of that, so it's false, so now we are docking you for saying something false.
Because they haven't found
they haven't looked.
Yeah.
They wouldn't listen, but they said, well, no, there's no evidence, so therefore it's a lie. And you're spreading false information, fake news.
Yeah, it's
and that's how bad they are.
Yeah, no, I believe it. I believe it. So anyway, Elon Musk responded to him because he was asking, can anyone tell us why we're being banned from Instagram, basically is what Kennedy asked. And then Elon Musk responded, offering to have you live to discuss this on Twitter Spaces.
Yeah.
And so would you like to do a Spaces discussion with me next week? So Elon wants to personally sit down. Elon, he's not going to relegate it to anybody. He's going to sit there and talk to him himself. That's
the thing. Now, Elon really likes Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
I think he wants to be the next
You think he wants to be Joe?
And he just doesn't. He's got Asperger's disorder. It's a mental health
He's got
thing.
something.
It's
an
antisocial kind of thing. And it's very
He doesn't seem antisocial.
Oh,
do you think this is his way of combating it?
It could be his therapy, but he does great with one-on-one. Doesn't like big groups. No, listen, this is one of the most successful men in the world, bar none. But when you think of it, the fact that he's battling his own behavioral disorder.
Right.
Because it's an antisocial thing.
That's interesting. It's a good way to do it because when I was interviewing for a job out of college, one of the people one of the companies I interviewed with was Prudential Life Insurance. And they give you this, it was a personality, these personality index tests. And one of the questions was, if you arrive late to a meeting, a speech by someone, and you enter the hall, the room, and all of the seats are full except on the front row, but it's already started. What do? Do you walk to the front and sit down, or do you stand in the back? And the normal response would be, I'm going to stand in the back because that's the normal. But I figure, wait a minute, they don't want shy people. They want you to be bold, unafraid. Now, my normal personality is I'm going to stand in the back. I'm not walking, but I said I walked to the front to take one of the empty seats in the front row.
See, I've got another answer.
Well, there is not another answer.
I know, but there is.
Yeah, no,
they didn't give you another
that's
one.
not the option.
I know,
you
they
got
only
two
gave
options.
you two.
You can stand in the back or sit it down, but everybody's going to see you walk in front of the crowd.
I know, this is just frustrating when they give you only two choices.
Well, but there's a reason for it.
Yeah, I know.
They want to check you out.
Yeah.
And so I gave that answer. But what's funny is I've been in those situations afterwards where I've come into situations late and I either have to stand in the back or sit down. And I thought about it and I said, you know what? I need to do what I said I'm going to do on that answer. So I walk up in front of everybody, down the whole aisle, and I go sit in the front. And it was a little hard. I pushed myself, but I did it. And after a while, if you do it a few times, then it's not a big deal anymore. Because you have to tell yourself that most of these people don't know who you are and never will know who you are, and they could care less who you are. So get over yourself. It's one of those deals.
So I was an usher at a big mega church. back in the 90s.
You and your mega churches.
Yeah. And, well, we were told, because we had ushers at each of the door, when people come in, you might need them to stay there if the pastor's in the middle of making an important point, because there are natural pauses and transitions even in the middle of a sermon. And you just wait for that.
Dave.
What?
You're making up a whole scenario. That's not...
Didn't make it up. This is what my weekly duties
were. But
I'm
saying that's not the whole issue we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
We're dealing with your personality.
I get you. Okay. And these were the choices, and you had to give one or the other.
Right.
And I'm just saying, this is just disclaimer time. This is, a lot of people are going to side with where I'm at on it. Because that was what we were had to enforce.
No, you have two choices.
Yes,
what are you going to do?
I know.
That's all we're discussing here now.
Yeah, you're right. We're going down rabbit trail.
We don't want to hear about pastors in a big preaching message. And
I know. Yeah, let's stick with your point.
We got 2 points. You can either stand in the back or
We were talking about personality.
Right.
Yes.
And because you were discussing Elon Musk and his personality disorder, essentially. And this is therapeutic for his disorder, Asperger's.
It could be.
Yeah. And so I'm just saying that I'll never forget that I had to force myself, and for a long time it was hard for me to do it, but I did it on purpose to try it out, to push it, and after you do it once or twice, it's not as hard anymore.
You're right.
Because you understand, get over yourself.
It's just like public speaking.
Right. Exactly. I used to be scared to death.
Oh, I suppose.
I remember taking speech in college, and it was hard as anything in speech class to get up in front of 15, 20 people.
Yeah.
And then, speaking later for thousands, and it's not a big deal anymore.
Yeah. Sure.
After a while.
Yep.
You might have a little butterflies in the beginning. Am I going to mess up here? But after that, it's not a big deal anymore. But you just have to you have to push yourself.
Yeah. By the way, you know who I really think is a surprise candidate for president?
All right, let me think. Is it Ramaswamy?
Yeah, Vivek Ramaswamy. The guy's brilliant, a great communicator.
Yeah, I agree. I like him. I like Vivek.
He's somebody you want on your team regardless.
Yeah. And he's so full of energy. And he's just,
And
yeah.
He's going to be a success no matter what he does.
Oh, yeah.
And I think having him communicate and advance the philosophical principles of conservatism and freedom, this is awesome.
Yeah, and he takes some stances that whoa, yeah, hey, he's a pretty.
I'm just really impressed with the guy. No, that doesn't mean I'm supporting him for president.
He's tied with what's her name already from South Carolina.
Yeah, Nikki
Haley.
Yeah.
So at least I'm glad of that.
Yeah, pick your favorite Indian.
Pick your favorite Indian. Oh, well, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. That's funny.
But I just think the guy is just so articulate. He's so able to. I saw him. Was it on CNN? Was going after him. They're trying to trip him up. He was having none of it.
Oh no, he's too smart. He's too smart. Yeah, you better watch out because he'll get you if you try to get him.
I'm telling you, this is the new Republicans. Because, 10 years ago when I was running Santorum's campaign, none of those guys in the field, not even Newt Gingrich was this good.
Yeah, what's his name, too, is the other one. You see him everywhere now. Byron, he's the congressman from Florida, black guy.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
Can't think of his name. But he's another one, just brilliant guy. I think he went to Harvard, but he's just the smartest can be, and they try to get him, and he just makes mincemeat out of him.
I'm telling you, Trump is the one who pioneered this take no prisoners.
And these people are on his side.
Yeah. And so I'm just saying, we've got now a bunch of great opportunities for the next decade.
I'll tell you who to watch out for, though. Here's the guy. See why I think DeSantis is making a huge mistake.
Mm-hmm.
The guy I think is going to be the next is the mayor of Miami.
Yeah, you've been talking about him. Last week you mentioned.
Yeah, watch him.
Yeah.
He, I think, is going to overtake Ron DeSantis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's also Asa Hutchinson and Mike Pence. And there'll now be a 5-second pause for y'all to say, who the heck cares? I mean, it just... All right, we're back.
Yeah, the mayor, I think he's smart enough. He's just laying back. He's waiting because I think he realizes that all he needs to do is get some popcorn and sit and wait for 2028.
Oh, I think Trump will snap him up for his leadership team. Probably, urban development.
Yeah, I don't think he needs to do it. Oh, well, yeah. If he does that and leaves him as mayor of Miami, and then in 4 years, because Trump only has one term. See, this is why I don't understand DeSantis. He's making such a mistake. All he has to do is wait 4 years, 2 years, really 2 years, because after 2 years, you're already starting to run for the next election.
Yeah.
Trump only has that one term.
Yeah.
So in 2 years, DeSantis could already be running. And now, and the mayor of Miami, if he's smart, he'll wait the 2 years and he'll start. And oh, man.
In Florida, the term limits are even stiffer than they are in Oklahoma. All their legislators, 8 years and you're out.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, every 2 years, state legislature, has re-elections. And Don Rubottom, who was the clerk of the House there, he left Oklahoma to go work under Marco Rubio when he became speaker. And he said, we just call them freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, So I'm pretty sure the governor is limited there to 2 terms. So if DeSantis really, he's in his second term now. It ends in 26. That gives him 2 years of nothing to do but run for president.
Exactly.
So it makes sense. And it makes all the sense in the world what we're talking about, unless you are so absorbed with ego. And I think it's sad because that could be his undoing.
Exactly.
He's got such great
That's what I'm
stuff
trying to say. That's what I'm trying to say. The mayor of Miami, his name is Francis Suarez. Suarez. Mm-hmm. Keep an eye on him. He's a sharp guy.
Yes.
He's very smart. Miami right now is one of the lowest crime rates in America.
Wow.
Yeah, for a big city like that.
That's amazing.
Their economy is just bursting.
Yeah.
It's the crypto capital of the world.
I'm telling you, that was a city back even in the 80s that was so drug infested. Mm-hmm. And the 70s was even worse. That's where Miami Vice got, because, all the drug kingpins that would just be bootlegging their stuff in through the ports there in Miami. It was really bad. And I tell you what, if they've got crime cleaned up there, that's a miracle. Yeah. That's a Rudy Giuliani type miracle.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree. And when you see him, he's just vivacious. I guess he's very positive, and he's a nice guy. Yeah, he's a Republican, and I think he's got the world ahead of him. Hey, the House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer and Chuck Grassley were approached by a new whistleblower. It's a totally different whistleblower. They're keeping him under wraps. And he's alleging that the FBI was in possession of a document called FD 1023 form. It's dated June 30th, 2020, which explicitly detailed information provided by a confidential human source alleging Biden, while serving as vice president, was involved in a $5 million criminal bribery scheme with a foreign national in exchange for influence over foreign decisions.
Okay, is this the one that FBI Director Wray is our top cop in America, the FBI director, whose job is to enforce the law, is now violating the law in refusing to honor subpoena. Remember what...
Comey?
No, it was Bannon and... what's the guy's name? Bannon's sidekick, who they're facing charge. Bannon got arrested, convicted.
For withholding evidence?
For refusing to appear before Congress. Refusing the subpoena.
Failure to appear.
Yes. That was just last year he got convicted of it. And now you got the FBI director himself doing the same thing Bannon got convicted of.
Yes, but you have FBI Director Steve Bannon.
The enforcement should
Covering
be harder on the cop.
Covering up for the Democrat.
Yeah.
A Republican.
Yeah. I mean, do we not see that we live in a corrupt nation?
There you go. You nailed it.
Yeah.
That's where we live. That's where we live right now.
Yeah.
That's just the way. Hey, you have some statewide stuff. Let's finish with that.
We do.
Let's finish with that.
The Oklahoma Supreme Court, in their collective wisdom, decided that we have to throw out all of our newly signed into law pro-life legislation, anti-abortion laws. And it's over. Get this technicality. We give exception for the life of the mother, okay? But the language that was used in there is an imminent threat to the life of the mother. And they said a mother's life could be in serious danger, legitimate danger, even though the nature of it isn't imminent, such as an ectopic pregnancy, which is a ticking time bomb. But it may not meet the criteria, at least to the Supreme Court, of how they define imminent. Now, even with this, what's called a severability clause, which they put in there saying, if certain sections of this are ruled, unconstitutional or struck down, these other parts remain. Well, the Supreme Court said, but then we would have to rewrite a lot of this, and the courts aren't supposed to legislate from the bench, so we're throwing it all out. Okay, and yes, that was my emphasis on the giddiness, but and it was a split decision. I think 3 of the 9 justices dissented on it. But I don't know what the legislature is going to do. They did stay in special session. They're going to go back for their next session is on June 12th. And we'll see. But if you want the legislature to correct this statute, let them know.
Yeah, so they'll rewrite it, and then the Supreme Court will find another technicality here. The Supreme Court, they're just looking for a reason to overrule it.
Yeah.
That's all. I mean, it's one of these deals where I don't care what it's like, it reminds me of, there was a joke years ago by some comedian. Black guy in Mississippi came before the judge on some charge, and the judge said, "Nigga, we're going to give you a fair trial here before we hang you." And then and that's kind of what this reminds me of.
Yeah,
we want to give you every chance we can to fix this thing up before we finally bury it.
No.
I mean, this is where we are because Mary Fallon put people into office. Between Mary Fallon and her predecessor, put people into office, into the court that shouldn't be there. Okay, or that are, let's put it this way, that are not on the side of life.
Yeah,
and not just life, but so many of the conservative principles that we may hold. And that's where the problem lies.
There is one justice on the Supreme Court that was put there 40 years ago, a woman George Nye appointed her about 40 years ago. And I think Mary Fallon, maybe two of those people are still on the bench. And you know who really put a lot? Brad Henry. Right
that's
before
right.
Mary.
Yeah, right. That's right.
But you know, we have some turnover happening, but there is a retention vote that they face. I think it's 4, 8 years or whatever. But you know when's the last time we removed justices from the Supreme Court? When we convicted 2 of them for bribery, for literally accepting money in exchange for how they're going to vote on something to come into.
And that's probably a couple of Republican-leaning ones. It seems like our guys are always the ones that get caught accepting bribes and not the other side. It's I don't know what the deal is there.
But here's the problem. What we used to do is truly the governor nominated someone. Mm-hmm. After that happened in the 60s, where we actually sent 2 of them to prison, we changed the law where we have this nominating committee, which includes people from the bar and other things, and they give 3 names to the governor, and those are the only 3 names the governor can choose from. And that's the problem.
It is. It's a big problem.
Yeah, in overall, listen, Oklahoma, in our system of government, political scientists would refer to this as a weak governor system. Our legislature has way more power than our governor. And the problem is our legislature is continuing to grovel and give themselves, especially the speaker and the pro temp. We saw that just this week. The governor announced today he is letting this budget become law without his signature, because 2 years ago he vetoed a budget and they overrode it and it became law without, and just to save himself that indignity, he said our budget is negotiated between the House and the Senate leadership, particularly the budget. It is the least democratic form.
So, well, the good news about this is, which is, I think it's a smart move, because nobody can come back and blame him for anything in the budget.
Yeah.
Because he can say, hey,
his criticism,
you go right to the Senate pro tem and the speaker.
Yeah. Now, his criticism on this, it has been all year, is he believes we should reverse some of those tax increases, income taxes, that Fallon put in 18, because we've never had more money in savings than we have now, and our legislature is not doing that. They want to have extra money. They want to have more pork barrel projects. They want, I mean, it's candy, it's cocaine to a legislature, because you buy votes with it.
When is the next budget coming up?
Well, it just became law.
No, I know, but when is the next one?
Well, every year.
Every year. So, okay, and when do these guys get out?
Next year is the last year, I believe, for both the Senate pro temp and pretty much the whole House leadership team.
So it's possible we could get some other people in, the governor could work with them.
Right. It's going to be a big change after next year in the House. Big change, because
so the governor does have an opportunity to still work on this
in his last 2 years. And you know, the problem with this, I mean, the governor actually criticized them. He says, look, I'm not going to sign on to this because you're using one-time funding sources for regular occurring expenses. And that's what got us into trouble. It's a quick fix thing, and you just don't want to use, okay, we got a whole bunch of money here, let's run an agency off of that. Well, what are you going to do next year? Where are you going to get the money to run that agency next year?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, it's like the Obamacare situation, where they were cutting us some slack for the first, 5 years, I think, and then after that, all of a sudden, then it falls on the state.
Well, they accept that Congress is continuing it on.
You're saving them,
It ain't going to change.
Yeah, so that's part of the new of this budget. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So you've got that going on. By the way, the Cherokee Nation is having their election, new chief, and one of our former guests, Wes Snowfire, is running for, I think, vice chief.
Vice chief.
Yeah. And so we'll see what happens there. Chuck Hoskins, who's running for another term, is as leftist as they come, as woke psychotic as they come.
Woke psychotic.
Yes, I don't use the term woke anymore without adding psychotic.
Psych-woke.
Because it's a psychosis. They're nuts. You know?
No, I agree.
So anyway, so that's another little bit more news. And anyway, so that was the last thing I had.
Well,
and
right.
I know your family's having a big week. So, but that's going to be, it's good to have your son home.
Yeah, it is. And I'll let everyone, my mom passed away on Tuesday. And so my one son, my number 2 son, he came into town yesterday. We're having a viewing this next week here in Tulsa, and then she'll be buried at Fort Bliss, Texas, next to her beloved husband down at Fort Bliss Memorial Cemetery, there where they have all of the troops.
Yeah.
And it's big. There's a lot of, and it's pretty packed out. I don't know how much room they'll still have for any more. That the Iraqi and Afghan wars really packed it out. It's pretty full. But anyway, she'll join my dad down there, and then.
You know, my mom told me that my dad was buried at a military cemetery just by a hometown, and the way they set it up now is the spouse of the deceased veteran, they put their casket right on top of the veterans, and then the backside of the marble
is where they'll put the name, on the back,
Is that pretty standard?
Because on the front there's so much information. They'll have his name and rank, and then they'll have all of the different wars that they served in, all the foreign, like my dad will have during the Korean, Vietnamese, and Germany, Korea, Vietnam.
So, okay, but put it on the back because they're both polished marble, white marble, and it's kind of like it's its own tombstone, right?
Yeah,
its own marker itself. And I could see some bachelor guy who'd done a million things, been at the bottom of the front it says continued on page 2. See the backside. No, I'm sorry.
No, they do have private first class, PFC, James Johnson or whatever, and they'll have the date, birth and death date. Yeah. And they'll have either a cross, it used to be a cross or a Star of David. Now they'll have a crescent, if they were Muslim. But, they'll have sometimes, if they're Greek Orthodox, I think they have the Greek Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox cross up at the top. But and it's beautiful. It used to be green and grass, but because of the water situation, it's out in the desert there in El Paso. What they've done, they've gone to this desert look, and it's all rock. With these desert trees. I mean, it's beautiful. At first, my mom would just complain because look at this. Shame on them.
It's not like Bavaria,
right? Yeah. How dare they? What are they doing? Because it was half, this, and then it was just splotchy, and then finally they got it all done, and now it's all uniform and it's beautiful. It really does look. It's a great look. Yeah. But anyway, I'll never forget. But Mom will be joining Dad out there, and it's she had quite a life. I haven't. So I'm doing another book. I think you know.
Oh no! Tease it for us.
Well, this will be a book. It starts with my mom was in the German Air Force, the Luftwaffe.
Really?
Yeah, the last year of World War II.
Holy smokes!
She drove trucks for the German Air Force, and at the end of the war.
See, this is something I'm hearing for the first time.
Just before it ended, her Air Force squadron, they fled into Italy, but they let the girls go because they were afraid what the Americans might do to them with the girls. So they told them to go back home a different way. And so they went home on foot, about 150 miles, and they would walk along the railroad tracks at night. And they would hide out in people's barns and sleep during the day. And then they would keep following the railroad tracks at night until they got home. And fortunately, they made it. Were never caught. And she would tell these stories how she saw, the American planes shooting people and stuff. She didn't have that good or high of an opinion of the Americans at one time. But anyway, she made it home, and then the war was over, and what the Americans did, Bavaria was a very Nazi stronghold.
Yes.
It was a party.
It's kind of where Hitler's retreat was, up in the mountains.
Yeah, down south, Berchtesgaden, yeah. And in fact, she saw him in person, in Nuremberg, because she was there, a little village outside Nuremberg. She got to see him in person and everything. And they all revered him because she was a kid growing up.
Yeah. He sent me birthday presents.
Exactly. And Christmas presents.
Oh, and Christmas, too.
Yeah, well, because she was an orphan. Her mom was a widow. And so he always
fatherless.
Right. Yeah. So he sent gifts to all the kids. And it was socialist. That's why we said Nazis, the National Socialist Party. And so he sent the widows gifts and the children presents and stuff on birthdays and Christmas. But anyway, so after the war, she started working in this factory, and then my dad, he got stationed up. But what the Americans did to poke the Germans, the Aryans, in the eye, the U.S. military was segregated.
Yes.
So they put all black troops there in Nuremberg.
Yeah.
So if you go to Nuremberg today, you'll see a whole lot of mixed German.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of mixed from way back
see
then.
Her coming home and say, "Did you see Jesse Owens? I saw him." Because to a lot of white people, you don't see blacks all look alike, right? I mean, that's. And for me as a kid, because I lived in an all-white town, I mean, I hardly ever saw a black person in my life. And somebody said, "What do you look like?" Well, you look black. That's all you know.
He looked like Jesse Owens.
It was funny. A friend of mine was doing summer missions in the Philippines, and he had these little round glasses, and everybody in the Philippines says, "John Lennon, you're John Lennon." They get all excited because to them, white people all look
goes the other. It's funny when I was in Uganda. Uganda, and this guy, this Ugandan, I'd been there like 2 or 3 weeks, and this Ugandan guy comes up to me, "Brother Huff, tell me something." He said, "You're just like the others, but you're different somehow." They couldn't tell. They couldn't tell. And and I would say, I'm a black American, and they said, "You're black." I mean, to them, they couldn't distinguish between me and the rest of the Americans. Yeah. And I'm sitting there, what is wrong with your eyes? But to an African, in Uganda, or in those, it's like us, and it's like us not being able to tell a Korean from a Japanese person or Vietnam, the Asians. But anyway, just to go, so my dad, that's how my mom and dad met and fell in love, and then what's the old Larry and Ann sitting in a tree, K-I-S-S-I-N-G, first came love, and then along came Eddie and a baby cat. Right? Yeah. It was that, not necessarily in that order.
Right.
I was 5 before they got married.
Right.
Because the military tried to dissuade them getting married, and it was still against the law. Mixed marriages were against the law in 16 states in America.
Yes.
Up until 1965 even.
Right. And you had mentioned in another show about your dad had to get reassigned. They were going to send him to a state where...
Fort Polk, Louisiana.
There you go.
And he flew to Washington and got the orders changed, and we went to New Mexico instead. Yeah. That's where we started. So anyway, that's how. And anyway, that's the whole main story. But the things my mom went through, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, really, when I think about her life and the things she endured and put up with, and unbelievable now when I think back. I mean, it's just amazing. And I better stop now or I'm going to start crying.
I got to say, I met your mom last year. And she, I like, oh my goodness, because a lot of your looks, a lot of your features are very much your mom, you know? And so he looks black, but he also looks like a croat. Okay, there we go. I'm sorry.
But I cut out. So, yeah. Anyway.
And let me say this, Eddie.
Yeah.
It's a time of transition. And Scripture does give us some guidance on it. We go through hardship, go through tough things. And the Apostle Paul said, he prayed, God, I don't want this. And God's answer was, my grace is sufficient for you. And my prayer is, may God's grace carry your family through this time. Because it's truly what carries us is God's grace.
Amen.
Yep. And...
Thank you. And I'm going to finish with this song.
All right.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. God bless. We'll talk to you next week.
Take away my sadness, ease my trouble, that's what you do. All the morning sun and all its glory, reach this day with hope and comfort too. And you fill my life with laughter, you can make it better. Ease my troubles, that's what you